Gale.
Madam Deputy Speaker, from time to time, members of this House of Commons have the burden of debating whether or not to send our finest young men and women into harm's way and sometimes to their deaths. And I don't believe that any member of this House on either side ever takes that decision lightly, and we need always to take that decision on the best possible information. Madam Deputy Speaker, at the start of the Second Iraq War, my young constituent, Lieutenant Mark Lawrence, serving on a Sea King helicopter, was killed. That in itself is possibly the matter for a further inquiry. But I do know that that loss was devastating to Mark's parents, and I believe that they have a right to know that their only son lost his life in a just cause and that his sacrifice was worthwhile. Madam Deputy Speaker, I voted to send that young man to his death. On the eve of the vote, a significant number of members of then opposition benches, including myself, had grave disquiet about the cause upon which we were due to embark. And I and about a dozen colleagues met with the then leader of the opposition, my right honourable friend, the member for Chingford, and the shadow foreign minister, the then member for Devizes, Michael Ancram. The leader of the opposition told us on Privy Council terms that he had been informed on Privy Council terms by Mr Blair that the Iraqis had weapons of mass destruction and that there was a 40-minute threat to UK interests, and that therefore our support for the motion before the House the following day was vital. I'm afraid that I cannot concur with the honourable gentleman, the member for Leeds North East. I sat on those benches. I listened to the tone of the debate as well as to the words that were said. I have to say I believe that the House was deliberately misled. There were no weapons of mass destruction, as we now know. There was no 40-minute threat. And I think that it is plain, and I am convinced that it is plain, sadly, that Mr Blair had made a pledge to President Bush that the UK would be delivered, and he was determined to deliver the UK in support of that war. Madam Deputy Speaker, we cannot let this matter rest. We owe it to our armed forces to see this through. I support the call to ask the Public Administration and Constitutional Affairs Committee to take further action. My honourable friend, the chairman of the Select Committee, has indicated to me privately, as he's indicated on the floor of the House today, that his inquiries are ongoing and that further recommendations will be made, and I am grateful for that. I resent the fact that this is described as an opportunist Scottish Nationalist Party motion. Technically, yes, this is an Opposition Day debate. But the motion has cross-party support, and I'm grateful that the government has effectively recognised that this is a House of Commons matter and should never be a party political matter. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm not interested in a witch hunt against a former and discredited Prime Minister. I concur entirely with my right honourable friend, the member for Rushcliffe, when he said that we have to seek to take every measure to try to make sure that these circumstances do not arise again. We cannot bring back the dead, but we can help to prevent further and unwarranted sacrifice of the men and women of our armed forces. I'm not interested in the outcome of this vote. Whatever the outcome, I hope that my honourable friend, the chairman of the Select Committee, will help to ensure that the right measures are taken so that we never ever face these circumstances again.
Paul Flynn.
I'm delighted to follow the honourable gentleman because we've been through the same experience of this House at that time. And while we like to feel that we take our decisions on intellectual basis, I know my feelings on this are motivated by a very strong emotional basis in what happened to my father in the war. he volunteered, he lied about his age as a 15-year-old in order to go to the continent and stop the Huns bayoneting Belgian babies. He returned broken and badly wounded in 1919, extremely grateful for the Germans for having saved his life when he was dying in a foxhole there, and he could well have bled to death. But my motivation for this, I think our highest motivation should be the interests of our armed forces. What they need is an absolute assurance that any decision to put their lives at risk are taken in the most serious way, after the most searching inquiries that are carried out. We owe them that. I believe there's another inquiry that's necessary in this House, and that's the decision to go into Helmand Province in 2006, at a time when only 6 members of the armed services had been killed on our side in the war. And we went in there on the basis, in the hope that not a shot would be fired, and 450 of our servicemen died as a result of that. And this is what we must do now, and that's what we should be taking. Not a tribal party row in this place. It's not appropriate, it's not right. We have to look to the whole reputation of Parliament. And as the Honourable Gentleman was put out, as said, we were misled. Now, whether it was deliberately misled, I mean, this expression, sincere deceivers, has been used in the United States about what happened to that war. But we know that during that debate, 139 of my comrades on the Labour benches voted against the war. It was a very courageous thing to do, because we were under great pressure. But there were 50 others who had grave doubts about the war, and they were, in my view, bribed, bullied, bamboozled into voting the wrong way, and many of them have regretted it very much since that.